My name is Cindy Sherman, and I'm an artist who happens to use a camera as my tool, so some people would call me a photographer.
Hi, welcome back. Cindy Sherman grew up in a strict and religious home with an overbearing father, and she would escape reality by dressing up and using makeup to transform herself into someone else. Looking at how she evolved from being this inward-looking little girl into an art superstar is interesting, in respect of how certain seemingly random and insignificant events influenced the development of her unique visual voice. In 1972, she went to Buffalo State College to study art, and initially she excelled at drawing and painting. Ironically, she failed the compulsory photography course because of a lack of technical skills. When she was forced to repeat the course, she was assigned to a new teacher. This person became the first to make her aware of conceptualism. The teacher believed that the idea behind an artwork was what really mattered. I don't agree that it's the only or necessarily the most important thing. But for Sherman at that time, this was a light bulb moment. She later moved to New York with her boyfriend and first stayed at home dressing up and taking pictures of herself. She would sometimes arrive at work wearing some disguise, a nurse's outfit, or some other thrift store creation. Because of her extreme shyness and wish to divert attention away from herself, she would go to social occasions in character, basically presenting herself to others as a persona. She liked to work alone because she felt less inhibited.
Basically, I have this head on a tripod that I use to stand in for myself. So then what I do is figure out where the camera is going to be and put a piece of tape down, and then put tape down according to where the eye line is. Yeah, it's just really important to sort of know, just look at myself and figure out what's working and what's not.
During the stage, she used a wig that she had found to create one of her earliest self-portraits, looking like the famous actress Lucille Ball. Warhol was one of her biggest influences, and she virtually replicated one of Warhol's self-portrait series. The photo booth was the way to make selfies in those days. In time, though, she realized that she was developing the beginnings of a personal style or language. Between 1977 and 1980, Sherman worked on what would become her breakthrough series, Untitled Film Stills. She posed as characters from American B-movies and European art house films. Unlike her Lucy portraits, where she focused on a specific actress, in this series she posed in various roles. Sherman is present in the images as photographer, art director, and performer. But these images aren't strictly self-portraits. Sherman is absent in that the images don't tell us anything about her in the way that a traditional self-portrait would. These days, this type of image is commonplace. But during that time, apart from Jeff Wall, hardly anyone was experimenting with shifting photography into the conceptual space. In the process of creating these photographs, she was erasing herself. She says that she was thinking like an actress, of actually becoming another person. She doesn't consider the work to be about her, and therefore it doesn't enter the narcissistic space in the way that selfies do.
It's just really what I wind up seeing, and what I see that doesn't have anything to do with me, I think, is when I know it works. Because a lot of times when I'm editing the slides that I've just shot, most of it just looks like I recognize myself all the time, and like edit, 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 and finally I see the one that looks like somebody else or something else, and that's what works.
By limiting her subject matter strictly to herself, she worked within a very narrow set of parameters, and this allowed her to continue mining this source of ideas over 35 years. 6 of her works feature in the top 20 most expensive photographs of all time. Not bad for a shy girl who played alone in a room. To say that she has imitators is a serious understatement. Anyone working in self-portrait today is working within the long shadow cast by Cindy Sherman. Her enormous success is well deserved, but there's been some unforeseen consequences. Sherman and her work have been adopted by feminist activists. Unfortunately for her, she gets tossed back and forth between 2 opposing camps. There are those who feel that she's the gold standard of feminist art because she exposes the so-called male gaze and reclaims it for women. Then there's the opposing camp that accuses her of being a traitor to all women. They say that she's part of the problem because she perpetuates the stereotypes. But Sherman has said that she was just enjoying playing dress-up and experimenting artistically. In 1987, she resisted the feminist label by saying that the activists were just finding ways to attach their theories to her work. One critic wrote about her Untitled Stills series saying Sherman set out to counter the construction of women as passive objects of male desire. Once artists put their work out into the world, it's at the mercy of other people's projections. There's often a huge difference between the artist's intention and the viewer's, critics, or academic's interpretation. From what she said, there's no indication that she was intentionally trying to encode any message into her art. She was dealing with broader human questions rather than trying to score cheap political points. Another unfortunate result of Sherman's legacy is that following her success, there's been a proliferation of dress-up self-portraiture within the art world. It's become the go-to look for statement-driven art pieces. Unfortunately, there's been very little real innovation in this arena during the past half a century. Most of these pieces look a bit like first-year art students attempting to make radical statements. The art world, though, has embraced activist art, whether it's about race, gender, or climate change. The Chinese conceptual artist Ai Weiwei has said that an artist must be an activist. A writer called George Packer, I think, articulates a very good argument against this statement. I'll read it for you. When artists turn to activism or introduce politics into a work of art, it's usually taken as something virtuous, an act of consciousness on behalf of justice. But artists and political values are not the same. In some ways they're opposed, and mixing them can corrupt both. Politics is almost never a choice between good and evil, but rather between 2 evils. And anyone who engages in political action will end up with dirty hands, distorting the truth, if not peddling propaganda. Whereas an artist has to aspire to an intellectual and emotional honesty that will drive creative work away from any political line. Art that tries to give political satisfaction is unlikely to be very good as either politics or art. Art and politics really need to be free to be themselves, but in our over-politicized world there's a drive to make the arts do something. But that would imply that being an artist isn't enough. And this seems to me a lack of understanding about what true artists actually do and the value of what they produce. Artists need to be able to explore all aspects of life without the imposition of political ideology. Also, for those who appreciate art for art's sake, it's a big turn-off to feel one is being preached at or to feel obliged to learn some lesson from an artwork. I think that the enthusiasm for this annoying trend will fade because AI will be able to produce this type of photograph at the push of a button. Now this is really interesting. Google's Gemini generated this image when asked to show the American founding fathers. And this one was the result of a request for a picture of the Pope. Now these I feel are groundbreaking in a screwed up kind of way. Within the broad category of role-play photography, these AI images will probably be held up as highly significant. They revealed so much about our polarized and political society, and they weren't even the result of an intentional art exercise. When I look at Sherman's powerful work, I don't feel any undertones of ideology. I get the sense of someone who's motivated by the desire to express herself while grappling with the complexity of being a human being. And for me, that's enough. Thanks very much for joining me. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.